Welcome to the Limit Free Life Show. I'm Michelle Perkins, your host. I bring you tips, advice, and guest stories about creating work you love. Whatever type of career or business you have or want, I want to help you find more meaning, money, and happiness. Now we are live from Hollywood. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Limit Free Life Show. I'm Michelle Perkins, your host. And last week, I had the distinct pleasure of interviewing best-selling author, and NBC Financial editor Jean Chatzky. And I have been reading Women with Money, her latest book, and was really hoping to get a chance to have a conversation with her around money. And we were able to do that last week. So please enjoy the show. You probably know Jean Chatzky. She's been writing and reporting on money matters for years, but you might not be up to date on what she's been doing. Jean Chatzky launched Her Money Media and hermoney.com in 2018 to provide women with information about money they can actually trust. The award-winning financial editor of NBC Today, Jean has also appeared on Oprah, MSNBC, CNN, The View, The Talk, and many others. Millions have tuned into her podcast, Her Money, with Jean Chatzky, which has received shout-outs from the New York Times, Yahoo Finance, and Refinery 29. The best-selling author of 11 books and in-demand motivational speaker, Jean is also AARP's financial ambassador and a fierce advocate for financial literacy. In 2015, she partnered with the PwC Charitable Foundation and Time for Kids to launch Your Dollar, an in-school magazine that reaches 2 million school children each month. Jean, thank you so much for being here. It is such an honor to have you. I so appreciate you coming on with me and spending your time this way today.
Oh, Michelle, thank you so much. And thanks for such a kind introduction. I appreciate it.
Well, actually, I love the work you're doing with school children, and I hope I got the name of that publication right. So you can correct me if I didn't. But
we call it Your Money, but
okay.
Your Dollar works just fine. And it's confusing because we spell it with the dollar sign. So people often don't know what it means. But it's one of my absolute favorite projects, and we've been doing it now for 5 years, and if for any parent whose kids don't get Time for Kids in the classroom, all the past issues are available for free online. So if you want to have
wonderful.
A money conversation with your kids and you go to the Time for Kids website, you'll find it.
Wow. I love that you're attacking this from every end of the spectrum. You've got the AARP crowd and the little kids and everybody in between. So that is really wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've admired you for a long time and really respected especially the writing that you've done around money, because there's something about the way you write about money, which can be a complicated topic, and you somehow make it easy to understand, but also enjoyable. Like you actually want to manage your money or invest and do some things, take care of your money when you read your books. And I knew you were coming on, so I wanted to bring this to show you, because this was my introduction to you years ago. I don't know if you can see it. I know, it's actually, I don't know how old it is. Do you want me to hold it up higher?
Say it down so that was the book on which the Debt Diet for Oprah was based. And that series was before the recession, so maybe 2005. I think it was 2005. I think, and we had noticed that the amount of consumer debt. I had noticed that the amount of consumer debt that people were carrying, the numbers were just getting larger and larger and larger. So wrote this book to tackle that, and it turned into a big platform and an important one, even today, when we are seeing the numbers again, the amount of debt that people are carrying in student loans, of course, but also credit cards and auto loans. The numbers are just getting scary again. And it makes me hope that we're looking at our own balance sheets really carefully.
Yeah, and I loved that book, and I don't remember now why I purchased it. I must have been having an issue myself, but But I've moved so many times, and I brought that book with me through all my downsizing and my boxes of books that went off to the library. And so that was when I thought I'll use this again at some point probably, or I'll refer to it. So, but you've written a new book, and you've written 11 books. And does Women with Money, is that part of the 11, or does that make
It
12?
is. It's number 11.
Okay. And so I would love, the book is wonderful. It's
Thanks.
absolutely wonderful. And I've been referring it to people, including men, who don't seem put off by the title. But I'd love to know kind of the impetus for this particular book and the vision you had for it, what you were thinking when you decided you would write it.
So the impetus was some more data. I like the data. I've been a personal finance journalist for, almost 30 years. And I like data. I like finding new stories because we've got new facts. Mm-hmm. And the facts that led me to this book were not just the soaring number of women as primary breadwinners, but the trends in education, with more women graduating from college than men every year, more women getting graduate and professional degrees in many disciplines, as well as this astonishing statistic about the fact that by the year 2030, women are going to control 66% of the wealth in America. At least they're projected to do so. And that's because, again, of those educational trends, but also women, because we outlive our spouses and our partners, we're going to inherit twice. We're going to inherit from our parents, but we're also going to inherit from those spouses, and it's going to put a lot of money in our hands. And we want different things from our money than men do. That's something that I learned in the past, largely over the past 3 years, doing the Her Money podcast, which is my weekly podcast, and hearing from our listeners and hearing from the folks who subscribe to our newsletters at Her Money and are in our Facebook group, who are just talking about it all the time. We want different things. And that led me to sit down and write this book.
Wow, I love that. And that question of what do you want from your money, I found to be really, really interesting. That comes up somewhere in the book, and maybe closer to the beginning. And actually, before we jump into that, can you run through the 3 parts of the book for people?
Yeah. So I asked the question, what do you want? And what I got was basically 3 answers. I want to feel comfortable with my money. I want to put the emotion around money in its place. So the first part of the book is devoted to doing that, to understanding who you are when it comes to money, why you are that way, and putting those feelings in a place where you can work with them, and so they don't kick you in the shin every time you're trying to accomplish something. The second thing I heard was, I want to make my money work for me. I want it to help me provide a nest egg for my future, maybe buy some real estate, start a business, tactical things that we want. And the third thing I heard was, I want to use my money for good. I want to use it to help my kids. I want to use it to help my parents if they need it. I want to leave a legacy. I want to make the world a better place. And so the third part is about using your money to make an impact.
Right. Wonderful. And those 3 areas are so interesting. And I like the way you began really with the emotional part of money, because that's a lot of what I talk about. I was trained as a CPA and a business consultant, but nobody ever mentioned that part, whether it was in school or, the years of working in finance and accounting. And so I love that you start there, because I think that is so critical and something that people are now talking about. So can you comment a little bit on what some of your findings were with respect to people's relationship with money, whether they were even aware that they had a relationship or they should have a relationship with money?
Well, I can tell that you've done this a lot, because that they were not aware in many, many cases. And interestingly, our emotional relationship with money, it's not a product of what we were taught. It's not a product of the fact that somebody said, oh, look, this is how you balance a checkbook, which nobody does anymore anyway. It's the feelings around money that you grew up with, the fact that there was tension in the air around payday or the holidays because there wasn't enough, the fact that your parents fought about it behind closed doors and you knew exactly what they were fighting about. And so I spend the first couple of chapters of the book digging into the fact that you've got a money story, you may not know it, here's how you figure out what it is. And then once you've got it, you can put the emotion in its place. I was actually at the MIT Age Lab for an event a couple of weeks ago. And Joe Coughlin, who I'd never met before, he runs the Age Lab at MIT, which is a fascinating place. They put you in a suit to make you feel like you're 95 years old, and then you walk around that way, and it's just eye-opening.
Sounds frightening, but
yeah, it is. It's a little frightening. He said, emotion puts money in motion. And I just wrote it down when I heard it because I think it's so true. It makes us act. It makes us do things. And sometimes those things are things that we later regret. So the more we can understand how emotion is driving us, the better off we're going to be.
Right. And that is, I love that. I'm going to write that down too. It's played a part in my life, and I see it playing a part in clients' lives and people. The decisions you make are not based on, rational thinking about money. You can know how to manage it or what to do with it, but that doesn't necessarily drive your decision making, which is super fascinating. So, that's wonderful. And there's just so much in the book to talk about. I really loved the piece on going into business for yourself too. I'm trying to remember what the name of that chapter was, but something about investing in yourself or doing your own thing. And so because that comes up a lot for people, especially if they've worked maybe a 20-year career and suddenly they find themselves at a juncture where they can go back into employment, or maybe they could start something for themselves and they've got all this expertise. And I found that chapter very interesting. And a lot of people will ask me, well, where do I find the money to do this? Or I can't find the money. They'll just make the statement. And you have a section on finding money from your personal assets. And I'd love to just hear, some thoughts on that. Good idea, bad idea. How do you set boundaries within that framework?
Well, I think it depends on what kind of entrepreneur you're going to be too. I found myself starting a business because I got fired. And I think a lot of people find themselves in exactly the same position, especially now, and especially people who are a little bit older, who have 20 years under their belt, maybe get downsized and start asking themselves, well, what's next? Right. For some entrepreneurs, and I fell into this category, you may be able to just continue to do what you were doing, but do it for yourself. And for those kind of people, you often don't need very much capital at all, right? I mean, I already had a couple of side gigs. I was doing a little bit of writing on the side and speaking on the side when I got fired at Money Magazine, which they called downsizing, but we all know what it is. And so I thought about it. I actually looked for another job because I wasn't really thrilled with the idea of going out and finding health insurance and getting off this space, which I didn't do for quite a long time. I found the health insurance, but I worked from the kitchen table for a while. And it's determined that I actually, by picking up another couple of clients, could be much more profitable than I would have been by going back to work for somebody else. And I think there are a lot of the internet makes marketing yourself so much more possible.
Right.
That's an alternative. Starting the kind of business where you need capital where you need to stock inventory, that is different. And so that people who have to lay in inventory or buy equipment or are starting businesses that are more capital intensive, I think requires more of a setup, where you take the time and you try to save enough money to keep yourself going for at least a year, or figure out where you're going to get that money. I don't love the idea of borrowing from your house or your 401k. I would rather you find the capital from other sources, because I've seen far too many entrepreneurs for whom they have decided that the business is the retirement plan, and then the business doesn't do so well, and then the retirement plan is gone up in smoke, and they have to start over again at a point in life when that's not optimal. So I'd like to see you look elsewhere and save before you take that kind of a leap.
Okay. Yeah, savings is key, and you do a great job of discussing savings, investing. I loved also the idea that, with a minimal amount of investing, you're still an investor. And I think there's a real mindset around that I'm guessing, you have the data, I don't, but that women have a bigger issue with that, like not feeling like they're either able to be investors, or they just, even if they're investing, they still don't feel like it. Like there's something else that they could be doing that would then put them in that investor position.
I think we've all watched a little too much CNBC, and I love CNBC. Don't get me wrong. I'm a fan of CNBC, but when I ask the question, are you an investor, in a room full of women, I get a lot of half-hearted hands going up. And then I ask, do you have a 401k? And almost every hand shoots up into the air, because we don't equate the two. When we've got 401ks and IRAs, we are investors. We just don't feel like them, because we think investors look and sound like Jim Cramer. We think investing is the same as trading. And it's not.
Yeah, I love that distinction. I hadn't heard that before, and I thought that just really clarified it for me. So, and the other thing that women love to do is undercharge, and in so many ways, whether that's a salary negotiation or as a business owner. Any advice, tips, thoughts on that?
Yeah, first do your research. So that you know what the going rate actually is. Second, practice out loud. Practice your ask. Vocalize it. You must do this, because you're nodding along with me. In front of a mirror. Sometimes I get asked this question about how do you talk on television? How do you talk confidently on television? And my answer is, I practice. I fully, when I first started doing the Today Show, I was working at Smart Money magazine, and I had to take these stories that were 6 to 8 pages long and condense them into points that I could make in 3 to 4 minutes, which meant getting rid of all the junk. And the way that I did it was to first sort of write it out longhand, and then to just practice it until I could get rid of the extraneous information that didn't matter, and also until it sounded natural coming out of my mouth. And that's what we have to do when we are asking for money, because it's so foreign to us. We have to, I was thinking about, what if somebody asks, what's your number? I mean, yes, it would be really, really nice to get them to throw out the first number. We know that's advantageous. Doesn't always work that way. Right. I'm thinking 20,000 more than I'm making now. And this is the reason that I am worth it. This is the value that I have brought to your organization. I've made you this much money, and I've saved you this much money. Right? It's not about I need this or I want this. Right. It's about this is what I've done for you. or this is what I'm going to do for you.
Yes, and same goes for women entrepreneurs who are, talking to prospects or clients about their fees. That happens a lot, where they jump ahead and discount them before they've even, heard from the other party. Seems to be a quick reaction on the part of a lot of women.
Yeah, I mean, I think it helps to have a standard set of rates. If you have set rates, you can just say, these are my rates, right? And then if you need to raise them, you can raise them. Or if it's been a while since you've raised them, you can raise them.
Right.
But when you're not starting from scratch every time, it's easier.
Yeah. Yeah, there are so many things that we could talk about. I love the fact that you integrate life into money matters, because money is such a huge part of life, and everything is affecting it. Your relationships, you have a great chapter on relationships and money, which I think is so important. Because regardless of what your beliefs and feelings are around money, you're working with other people who have different feelings and beliefs. And so you have some good tips there as well, because it's really important that the people talk about money.
Going back to your money story, if you can not only understand your own, but understand the money story of the other person that you're sharing your life with, it's going to be a lot easier. It's important to know, when they react emotionally, what's that about?
Yeah. Right. So, all important things. And I like, too, I've listened to your podcast, and there are questions that come up. And sometimes people ask questions about something they want to do in their life, maybe move or make a work change. And it isn't always about the money, that decision, right?
No.
Yeah, because sometimes we sacrifice some of our maybe potential financial health or wealth or whatever. I don't know. I'll let you comment on this.
No, I'm my feeling, and we actually, I think, have this in writing on the Her Money site, is that, life is the target. Money is just the tool that we use to get there. And if we can approach it that way, we'll all be a lot better off. And it's all about trade-offs. Every money question is a trade-off question, because unless you're Oprah, you can't have, you can't have everything.
Right.
And even Oprah can't have more than 24 hours in a day. So she's got to make choices too. The question is what works best for you. I got a question on a podcast that we just taped from a listener who lives in a suburb, and really, really wants to move into the city where she could bike places and walk places and not have to commute. And the housing prices, I'm trying to remember this, but the housing prices in the city were, $20,000, $40,000 more than where she's living now. And she said, how can I justify this? And my answer was, how can you not? Right? We all work incredibly hard these days. And it sounded to me, just by the tone of what she was writing, this was going to make a really big difference in her quality of life, and she could afford it. It wasn't that she couldn't afford it. It was just, she wasn't sure she deserved to spend the additional money on herself in this way. In my house, we say, this is why we work. That's our catch-all phrase that we use to, when we spend money on things just because we want to spend money on them, not things outside of our level of affordability or things that are going to sabotage our long-term goals, but just, things that will increase our level of well-being and satisfaction, I think I'm for doing that. There's too much stress in life.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. And I think it goes back to that question of what do you want from your money? And because I ask that question of people too with respect to their career more often. And people don't actually know what they want. And when money comes up and you ask them that question, what I hear a lot is, well, I want this amount and that'll pay my bills. A lot of times it's about paying the bills, and I don't think that's a very big, it's not a very expansive answer to that question of what do you want. So, and I don't know if that's more of a woman thing or not, but even thinking about what you want in a bigger way seems somewhat difficult.
Yeah. No, I think it is. And particularly, look, there are a lot of people in this country who are living paycheck to paycheck.
Absolutely.
And you need to who would be better off if they could figure out a way into a higher paying career that paid a wage that was a lot more livable, right? But these trade-off questions, no matter how we pose them, are difficult.
Yeah, but I do love the idea that this is why we work. So yeah, those things that help us to enjoy our life are really important and an important use of our money. That said, what would be a couple of the things that you would strongly advise people do with their money to be more secure and to, create the future they want?
So for women in particular, I think it's really important to get a grip on saving enough for living as long as we're likely to live. I mean, it's important for everybody to make sure that you've put yourself on a trajectory where you're going to be able to afford to live a really long time, unless you have some reason to believe that that's not going to happen for you. And that for most people means saving automatically some sort of a retirement account, investing that money, putting it to work, and just repeat. I think doing some planning has a ton of value. Figuring out the what, or the why. What do you want? Why are you doing this? Where are you going? And setting out a path to get there with the help of a financial planner. In many cases, makes a ton of sense. Those two things, if you do them consistently, they really give you plenty of options.
And any quick advice on how to choose a financial planner? That's often a question as well.
Yeah, I think ask for recommendations, particularly from colleagues, from colleagues who have financial lives similar to your financial life.
Okay.
You can find somebody. It's interesting if you can hire somebody who's used to dealing with somebody in a similar financial situation with similar benefit plans. They don't have to learn on the job. They are experienced in that. I like to see you working with somebody who has your best interest in mind, working with somebody who is a fiduciary.
Okay.
You should be asking how the person gets paid. Financial advisors get paid in many different ways these days, and try to understand how much this relationship will cost you over a year. That way you can compare people who get paid in different ways. You want to meet any planners that you're considering in person. And my my litmus test of a good versus a bad planner is somebody who listens more than they talk. You want somebody who's really paying attention to what you want. And then can you talk to this person?
Yeah.
Can you actually open up and have a conversation with them? Because even, if you can't, it doesn't matter how great they are. They're not right for you.
Well, thank you. That's great advice. There's so much wonderful wisdom that you have, so much wisdom in your new book, Women with Money. And I love the subtitle, too, The Judgment-Free Guide to Creating the Joyful, Less Stressed, Purposeful, and yes, Rich Life You Deserve. So I think everyone should read the book. And can you also tell us how people can stay involved with you? You've got a few different things going on.
The big one is Her Money. So if you go to hermoney.com, you will not only find our website, but click the subscribe button and sign up for our podcast and our newsletters, and we'll keep you abreast of what we're doing.
Wonderful. And I'm enjoying the newsletter quite a bit. It's not just a money conversation. There are a lot of career articles and things like that that are really wonderful. So
thank you so much. We're working hard on that.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today on the Limit Free Life Show. I'm very, very grateful to have met you and talked to you and been able to have this time with you today. So enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you so very much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Michelle.
I think one of the most important messages I have to share with the world about the work that I do is that your work is yours to create. This is your piece of art that you can create in your life, and there's really nothing stopping you. Overall, most of us can learn what we need to learn and figure out what we need to figure out and create that fabulous career or business that we dream about. And there's really no reason to think that you can't. My name is Michelle Perkins, and I am the CEO and founder of a company called Limit Free Life. And I help men and women to make dramatic change in their lives so that they can have the fulfillment, fun, and financial prosperity that they have always wanted to find through their work. The main services I offer through Limit Free Life are one-on-one private coaching, group coaching, trainings and seminars, and business consulting. My signature service is one-on-one coaching over a period of time, 3 months, 6 months, even a year. It really allows a person to decide on an outcome that they desire, and then for us to work together to really achieve that outcome in full. The type of clients that I typically work with are professional men and women who are driven to do more, who might be entrepreneurs, but also career professionals who work in organizations, who are really looking to do more with their lives and very open to thinking in new ways about what they're doing, and who are willing to take responsibility, do the work, make some changes, and who don't say I can't a whole lot. Clients up-level in a number of ways. For some, they start a business after being in the corporate world. For others, they have an existing business and they really figure out the key and the formula to making that business grow and take off. For some, it's a matter of really developing courage. And for many, it's a matter of up-leveling their view of themselves, what they're capable of, how powerful they are, what their strengths are, and where they can go in life. What I see also is that there's a spark that kind of gets lit, and that flame keeps growing within them, and there are things that they want that maybe they were reluctant to even express that they wanted, and now they just go for it. They have bigger wants and bigger dreams than they had before, and the sense that they can achieve those things. I feel very strongly that money beliefs are foundational to developing a business that can scale and grow and become the business that you want it to be, whatever level of success that is. And for people who feel stuck or their business isn't going the way they want, a lot of times it comes back to some of these money beliefs. So as a certified money mindset coach, I have the training to help people understand where their hidden money beliefs are either interfering in their lives or businesses, or coming into play in some fashion in all the decisions that they're making, both in their business and in their life. The overall mission behind my work is to help people love their work, to find satisfaction, fulfillment, fun, and also to be financially prosperous in what they're doing. That combination to me is a perfect recipe for making work a great part of your life. And so that's my vision, is for people to see work and money as allies in their life and things they can lean on so that they have something that makes them feel important and something that gives them a place to go to develop a sense of identity and purpose and meaning in the world. My greatest hope for my clients is that they will develop a holistic relationship with work, money, and life, and there won't be this separation where they go to work and then they live their life after work. And they will develop work or businesses that they love, they look forward to going to, and they give them the freedom and the income and the happiness that they're looking for in their life.